Hi everyone, it's Lisa from IDreaminSoap. Welcome to my channel and thanks for dropping by. Today I'm going to be making and cutting a cat soap. Now that's a soap with a picture of a cat in it, not a soap for washing cats. Now those of you who know me will know I absolutely adore my two cats. And as they've been the inspiration for a number of cat soaps that I've made, I thought I'd just spend just a minute of this video introducing them to you. Now, if you don't want to see any cats, that's perfectly fine. Just skip forward about a minute and that'll take you directly to the soap making. Come on, let's go see some cats. Sit down, Alex. Come in. Hello, ladies. Shall we show those lovely YouTube people how brilliant you are? Sit down, sit. Good girl. And spin. And high five. High five. Good girl. Lay down. Lay down. Good girl. Ring the bell. Up. Up. Good girl. Sit down. Okay. Sit down. Go, say bye. Say bye-bye. Good girl. So I'm going to start off this soap by making a cat embed, and this is going to be made at least a day before I make the rest of the soap to allow it time to set up properly and be unmoulded. So I'm just starting off as you'd expect with my pre-mixed lye solution and my measured out oils, and I'm just going to bring those up to emulsion. I'm then going to add my fragrance oil. Now the fragrance oil is called A Love Story and it's from Sentimental in the UK, and this is a gorgeous fragrance. I don't think it's a Love Spell dupe because those tend to have sort of like fruity fragrances and this doesn't have that, but this is certainly one of my favourite fragrances. Now I want my cat to be mainly white colour with wispy grey bits going through it. So the colour I'm using here is Antique Silver from Mica Mama to give me those wispy grey bits. And then I'm just going to use titanium dioxide for the bulk of the white colour. Now the mould for my cat embed is once again an embed mould that I've made myself, so I can't give you a link to it or anything, but I just wanted to just talk a little bit about these moulds. Now I have recently been lucky enough to be able to buy myself a 3D printer, which is brilliant, but I made this cat embed mould way before I had my 3D printer, and I actually just used what I had lying around. I had a load of these sort of 5mm foamy sheets, and I spent quite a long time cutting out loads and loads and loads of cats, and I took all those cats and I then stuck them next to each other to produce a big long foamy cat. And it was from that I then took that and I popped it into a little foam board box that I made, and I covered it with silicone, and that produced my embed mould that I've got. Now I've just got a little picture on the screen here. This isn't the actual cat mould that I made because I don't have a picture of that process, but this is an example here of another mould that I made, and this was me making a tree embed, and you can see that I've, again, cut out 1,000 tree shapes and popped them into a mould and poured some silicone in to get the mould that I wanted. So back to today's embed. I've got my little silicone embed mould in a very stylish handmade wooden surround, and I've used that just to give me a little bit of support with that reasonably floppy mould and to give it some insulation to help it go through gel. So I'm just going to alternate the colours here. Now I've deliberately kept the trace really quite thin because I want to get a sort of a wispy effect going through. So I'm literally just going to do lines, a bit like a drop swirl, but because it's really fluid, I'm hoping not to get the actual dropping effect. I'm actually going to do a little bit of a stir through it as well, just to make sure I get a wispy swirl going all the way through. So to finish off, I'm going to close up my exceedingly stylish wooden box and then pop this in an oven preheated to 170 degrees Fahrenheit, 75 degrees centigrade, and turn the oven off as soon as it goes in and leave it to sit overnight. I deliberately made a bit of extra batter because I'm going to need some white soap dough for later on. So I've just scraped that into a little dinky mould. I'm going to cover that. Now as it's white, I'm actually not going to try and push this through gel because whites actually retain a nice bright, more solid colour if they don't go through gel. So as this is pure white, I'm just going to leave it out of the oven. So a couple of days later, I've got my little block of white soap dough and I'm going to use my extruder to make some star embeds. Now for the little stars I want, I'm actually going to use an icing tip because there isn't a small enough star. Well, there isn't a star at all in an extruder set. So I'm going to take this icing tip and we just need to get it so it stays inside our extruder. Now, if you just try and put it in on its own, it'll actually just fall straight out through the cap at the top. So if you can find yourself some type of metal washer, and then that will just make the hole a little bit smaller, and you can pop your icing tip into there and that will stop it slipping out. And now you can extrude some nice dinky little stars. And then I'm just going to cut them. At this point I actually cut them slightly longer than the size of my mould because whilst they're wet they squish a little bit when you cut them. So if you just chop them roughly now and then trim them finely just before they go in the mould and they've hardened a little bit, you won't damage that star shape. So I'm now just going to refill my extruder with some fresh soap dough and I'm going to make a bigger star now because I want one single big star. And again, I don't have an extruder disc for this, so I've just literally cut one out of some fairly tough plastic and I'm going to use that. So I'm now just dispersing the micas that I want for the background of the soap, and I want the background to be a couple of shades of blue, so I'm using Blueberry from You Make It Up, and in one of the blues I'm going to add a touch of titanium dioxide, and then I'm also going to add some bits of purple in the sky as well, so I'm using Purple Passion, also from You Make It Up. So now I'm going to mix up the rest of the soap that I need for my loaf. Now these oils and lye that I've got here, I have taken account of the fact that I've got my cat embed. So I know the weight of my embed and I've worked out how many oils are in it because I know the percentage of oils in my recipe, and I've reduced these quantities here by that amount. I do want to save a little bit of batter for a design I'm doing on the top, so I'm just pouring off a little bit to put to the side now. And then the rest I'm just going to continue mixing until I'm happy that I've got an emulsion. And I'm going to split it off into the parts that I want. I'm not going for even parts, I want slightly more of the dark blue and then less of the purple and the light blue. And then I'll just measure out and mix in my fragrance oil and we're ready to start pouring. I'm just going to lay in a very small amount of each of the colours and give it a little swirl right at the bottom of the mould. And this is just to seat the cat into the mould so that there is some batter below it. But the cat is essentially going to sit at the bottom of the soap. And then I'll just place the cat embed in. I have kept that wrapped in some cling wrap so it doesn't dry out. And then I'm just going to fill in around the cat using a sort of in the pot swirl technique. I'm going to start off by just adding bits of colour to the top of my jug and pouring it in, especially when I've got these sort of smaller areas to get into. But then as we get further up, I'll just go more to a just normal traditional in the pot swirl. Every now and again, as I go up through my pour, I'm going to add in some of the little stars. And when I get to the point that's at the end of the cat's paw, I'm going to add my big star in and then continue pouring in the sky around it until I've finished. And then finally I'm going to take that little bit of batter I saved aside and I've added a touch of titanium dioxide. And as you can see here, I forgot to press record initially, but I've remembered now. And I'm just going through and using a little pipette to drop on some blobs of the white batter and make some little paw prints all the way along the top of the soap. And then I'll just go back over the little toe bits on the paws and just run a little thermometer through them just to give them a little spike to them that looks like the cat's claw. And then when that's done, I give it a little spray with rubbing alcohol, put the acrylic lid on, and then I do tend to put some cling wrap over that. I just reuse the bit of cling wrap that the cat was wrapped in when it was an embed. And then once again, it's just going to go in the oven and C-pop overnight. I then unmoulded and cut the soap 24 hours later. Now the pattern throughout them will be fairly similar for each bar, but you will find that each cat will have a different swirl in it, so the cats will actually look a little bit different. I'm really pleased with how it's come out. I think one thing I would perhaps say is the small stars. I think maybe they're a little bit small. I'm sure last time I made this I must have used a slightly bigger icing tip when I did these. So I think going forward when I make this again, I will either add some more little stars in or make them slightly larger. I hope you've enjoyed this video and that you like the soap. If you have, it would be fabulous if you could leave me a thumbs up and maybe a comment. These things help me grow my channel. If you'd like to see the videos I make in the future, you could always subscribe by clicking the icon that's coming up on the screen now. Thanks ever so much for watching. Hope to see you soon. Happy soaping!